new models and huge changes at Ford. So this is what many of you have been waiting in this show for, talking about new models and huge changes at Ford, the Ford specific information. So we're going to be talking about a new potential Ranger model, a new potential Bronco model, a guaranteed 2025 Ford Maverick interior and exterior refresh and what that might mean. Let's talk about a potential 1,000 horsepower Ford vehicle. That gets me pretty excited. I barely got that information out without stuttering. Here I go. I get a little shaky and excited. 1,000 horsepower. That's what I likey. We'll also be talking a little bit about Jeep. And we'll finish off the show in just a moment. In another episode, we'll talk about how Ford is losing billions with the EV adventure, what's going on with the EV adventure. But we'll be talking about the Ford Puma EV in this episode. So folks, before we get started, help this small family business out. Hit the thumbs up button, share, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you don't miss on any very important Ford information. So let's get back to this right here, right now, new Ford models, big changes. We just finished talking, catch our episode on Ford reliability. Ford reliability is great, but Ford responsibility is a whole lot better. So we've got the 2025 Ford Maverick refresh. I am excited. I don't know how I could ever get one of these because with the price drops on the Ford F-150 Lightning, I owe so much more than it's worth. Great if you're shopping for a Lightning now. Horrible if you bought one when they're on their peak prices. This guy right here. I had a feeling prices would come down, but I also thought that our community would love those Lightning videos much more than they did. I thought I'd have a lot of income coming in from the Lightning. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten it. I thought it was going to depreciate quite a bit when people thought I would actually make money from reselling this vehicle. Dealership almost didn't want to let me have it. They pushed me later. I got it about 7 or 8 months later because they thought I was buying it just to try to flip and make money with it. And my argument was I will probably lose about $10,000 from purchase price after roughly 6 months. Turns out to be many tens of thousands of dollars more. I paid $112 and on trade it's worth about $70,000 right now after 1 year of use. So that's pretty tough, pretty bad. That's the ugly of this live episode. But let's talk about the good. This is the good news. So let's talk about it right now. We've got a refresh coming for the 2025 Ford Maverick. We might get an ST model, and the ST model would mean big dark mags, a lowered stance, and potentially even a 2.3 liter engine out of it. If so, it's not going to be cheap, folks. It's going to be expensive. And that's where a lot of the debate is going down on the Ford Maverick. Should the Ford Maverick come out with more unique models that bring in more excitement to the brand? And they will be expensive, but also maybe getting that initial price higher. And should the base get more stuff? You've got some people, unfortunately, complaining about the current Maverick. Oh, I wish it had a bigger touchscreen. I wish it, did this, did that. I wish it was more luxurious. I wish it didn't have as much plastic on the inside of the interior. I wish the suspension was beefier. I wish there were more engine options. Well, folks, those are all wishes. You're, without realizing, wishing that the vehicle was considerably more expensive. And that's where we're at right now. Ford's got to deal with this. They want to sell. Their goal is to sell these vehicles and make a profit. But do they make a profit by giving people what they're asking for? So a whole lot more luxury and, quality parts, and the price goes up. So you sell less, but maybe profit margins go up. Is that going to be the recipe for keeping the doors open to the factories, keeping everyone working? Or is it continue to give the market not necessarily what they're asking for now, but let's face it, folks, why has the Maverick been so unbelievably popular? It's been so unbelievably popular, I think, because it's got an amazing price point, because you can have a truck that is pretty darn well equipped for almost half the price of an F-150. This thing has been stellar, and with groceries going up 3 times because somehow meat processing plants keep somehow catching fire because legislation is Policies are changing because in certain countries they want to randomly kill off, in Ireland, kill off, in Europe, in one European country, kill off 200,000 cows because somehow that's going to save the planet. Folks, we've had a lot more carbon in the atmosphere previously than we have right now, and we're not even that far off from not having enough carbon in the atmosphere to sustain plant life. We're at 0.04 particulates of carbon in the atmosphere, and under 0.02 plant life dies. We've had many multitudes. We've had 0.7 particulates of carbon in the atmosphere before, and things were still going, there was still life on planet Earth. So I don't believe this big carbon scare. I think it's just another example of added taxation, added serfdom, trying to create this, go back to that good old system of serfdom that there existed in the 12, 13, 1400s, that we just essentially rent everything, that we don't own anything, and that there's just no middle class. There's just almost everyone's poor and a serf, and very, very few people own everything. Well, I like this truck. It's rebellious. It goes against the curve. It goes against this agenda of everyone renting everything, because this is actually an affordable truck. So yes, while I think it would be exciting to get new, a better, maybe a little bit better interior, I like the current interior because I love the price. So what might we actually be getting though out of the 2025 Ford Maverick? Well, we are going to get, how Ford camouflages things says a lot. Obviously the doors aren't changing, folks, but we probably will see, like we saw with the recent update of the Ford Escape. What did we see? The hood is a little different, goes down a little further. The lights are very different. The grille is quite different. And the Maverick, we're probably going to see, maybe a change in either the bumper, the grille, or the hood, or all three. Might be a little change on the side fenders. It's possibility, and maybe a little bit change, some change in the back. You could have one or all of those. And on the interior, Ford Authority here is already taking some great spy photos of course, the camouflage truck. Thank you, Ford Authority, for bringing us those. Check the article out. Probably written by Brett Foote again. Brett Foote, I'm liking you, man. Love to meet up at some point during my adventures driving and visiting in the States. But they also have a spy photo of what looks like that may very well be, instead of the up vertical screen, that 8-inch vertical screen that sits on top of the dash, this looks like an integrated horizontal screen, maybe like the one in the new Ford Ranger, which, remember, the Ford Maverick is on the C2 platform. That is the platform that is shared with the Ford Bronco Sport, the Ford Escape, and pretty much the Lincoln Corsair. It's a fantastic platform, but you might maybe getting the base. So instead of the Ford Escape 13.2-inch screen, which is, horizontal and looks great, you might be getting a vertical screen like on the Ford Escape. So maybe you'll get the new Ford Escape, which is on the T6 platform. You've got the, Ford Authority I love it that they didn't just say, hey, it's like the one on the Ranger and expect you to go find images of it. They gave us an image right here, and you can see this image here. Kind of looks like maybe the image right here. So I think we're going to get a new redesigned interior, and I think the interior is going to blow people away. They'll be very surprised compared to what we have now. And I suspect, based on a little insider talk, or maybe a lot of insider talk, that we will get, so that's the current Ford Maverick interior. I definitely think that we are getting, I can't confirm this, but I can say I highly suspect we're getting an all-wheel drive hybrid non-plug-in Maverick for 2025. And folks, you will love it because they are very reliable and cost of ownership is extremely low. And a lot of that is from huge fuel economy savings. So let's continue, folks. You've got potentially a really cool Ford Ranger. So you've got the Ford Ranger MSRT, actually debuted in, we say it as if it's a D, but it's a T, whatever, debuted as a sporty European street truck. I think this would do very well in our market. Please Brett Foot, thank you for covering this. Please, Ford, make this available. That is a truck I would buy, especially that I can't get the Ford Ranger Raptor. Looks like our dealership's probably only getting one. And this is going to be true for many dealers. Many dealers will get 0 Ford Ranger Raptors, and ginormous dealers might get 10 or 12 for the year, but probably have a list of 30, because right now we have 5 orders for the Ranger Raptor, and 1 is getting filled, and I'm number 2. I'm not a number 2. You can write that in the chat. It won't break my heart. I won't cry over it right now, maybe later, but I'm number 2 at the dealer for a Ranger Raptor. So being that I would get that in probably 2025, I'm maybe rethinking that option. Bill Forrest, thank you so much for the support. Tom Dinder, thank you very much. Chatting with M. Peugeot, you make a great point. The XL Ranger is nicely equipped and is now $40K and looks amazing. And M. Peugeot says he'll eat lab meat when Taylor Swift gives up flying in private jets. M. Peugeot, I love the comment you just made, and it reminds us, how is it, if carbon is such an important issue, why is it that you have some elites that within 3 months can use the carbon an individual would, your average individual would, over an entire lifespan, but nothing's getting done about private jets? Nothing is getting done about cutting down trees for toilet paper, when we could all have a bidet at cost is about $40. The government, instead of giving huge electric rebates of thousands of dollars to go out and buy an electric vehicle, could just say, hey everybody, here's a free bidet. It barely cost us anything to give everyone a free bidet, and now we're saving billions of trees each year that soak up carbon, help cool off the planet. Remember, trees, forests cool off the planet. Cities heat up the planet. And what's the global agenda about? Getting everyone to rent and putting them, almost everyone, in major cities. So more cities. Oh, that's great. So apparently we're doing all this and we're being taxed more because we want global temperatures to go down. Why are we making more cities, folks? Asphalt and concrete are bad. The cities we do have, we should, if this was an actual issue, we would be covering them with grass and shrubs and trees. And that's not happening. We would stop cutting down trees and give everyone a bidet. That's a toilet that actually cleans you with water, and it's far better for you, far better for trees. And forests cool. They have this process, and the word's not coming out of my to mind right now, but they have a proven process of cooling down the air. Cities heat up the planet. So if CO2 is really a major issue, you make a great point. You'll start eating lab meat when Taylor Swift stopped taking private jets. And I think lab meat is ridiculous. Italy has actually banned lab meat, so good on Italy. Smart move, and there's a lot of farmer protests going on in Europe, and I don't want to comment on it because my free speech, I don't have free speech. I have a YouTube channel and it's a business for me, and YouTube has already threatened to delete it's not a threat. They just say, hey, if this happens again, it's a strike. And if you have 3 strikes, we delete your channel. I guess that's not a threat. They're just speaking facts to me, and they get to have their free speech and I don't get to have my free speech. So isn't that lovely? And, do recall in Canada, pretty ridiculous. People had their bank accounts frozen for having an opinion. Having a peaceful, non-violent opinion in Canada can mean that you got arrested and you got your bank account frozen. You can be a journalist in Canada and ask a politician a question and get pushed around and shoved by a bodyguard, and you get charged. You get charged. So there's definitely a lot of censorship going on. It's not okay. For high, for low, thanks for the support. YouTube, M. Peugeot says YouTube, it's a threat. It's not a threat, it's a promise. Yeah, very, very much. But being that I got the threat just because I played a little clip it, and it wasn't a copyright infringement. It was I got charged with misinformation because I played a piece from from Fox News, where the Surgeon General was questioning and saying, I want proof that there aren't adverse health effects, and until then, I'll recommend not getting a certain medicine. It's one of my lives at the 142-minute mark for Ford Ditches Boring. And that live didn't even get flagged. Reloading the show to cut it up into mini episodes, that's when it got flagged. It still hasn't been flagged. But anyways, I got flagged already once, so I don't want to, tell them exactly where to go flag me again. But I got flagged because I played that, and then I said, look, neither side, FDA or the Surgeon General, has proof. But what's important is that both sides can present proof that can speak freely. We can all speak freely so we can come to better conclusions. And supporting free speech, making a statement that free speech is important, that's what gets me a strike. Ridiculous. Rumble is not working very well for me. I go to load stuff into it and it just never loads. It gets canceled. Otherwise, I would slowly be trying to get all of us over to Rumble. But I can't do that because Rumble is not functioning at very little. Very rarely can I actually upload a video to Rumble. And I've tried over and over, and I go on to Reddit and I look at people's comments. I'm not the only one who is suffering this. Yes, Randy, you will see a bit of me on Rumble. Some of my videos are on Rumble. Maybe live is all I could do over at Rumble. But right now I want to build up a community over there by posting videos over there. So until I find out how to post videos over there to slowly build up the community, I won't do a live. I will keep the lives here, and I will be a good boy, and I will allow my politicians to censor me, because YouTube gets... Essentially, it's not as if YouTube wants to necessarily censor people. It's that they get pressure from elitist politicians, the same type of politicians which have been proven to magically have gold bars and tons of cash sitting around in their house, to have houses and cash given to them, and they don't even get jail time. It doesn't even seem like they get a slap on the wrist. They get caught, there's a fiasco, and then nothing happens. So, I definitely won't start talking about, right now we're in February. I certainly won't talk about the 6th of January. But I will say you could definitely look into that and look into the video footage that somehow very unjustly took over a year to get released. Took the Speaker of the House being changed just to have that information, though, that video footage of Capitol Hill actually getting released. The fact that that footage was kept from being released is an indicator and a sign of the times we are living in, folks. Awful, awful, awful. But look into it. Look into possible FBI interference. Very, very interesting. I certainly won't and can't have an opinion on it, but I do encourage you all to be as informed as possible. And I'll keep you all informed and keep this channel running by sticking to the news on the vehicles. So this Ranger is a Ranger I think a lot of us would buy. Beautiful, beautiful. So that's the MSRT. Beautiful thing. Thing of beauty. Look at it from the side here. Even if it had awful mags, this thing would still... It's got great lines. You've got the door pleat in the middle, which helps make the doors look a little less large, which is great. You've got the pleat up here in the box, which is going, also lines up at the front, all through, front to back, you got that pleat. This truck looks awesome. So Ford, please continue to give us in volume to satisfy the market. Please continue to give us models like Peugeot said, and a Ranger XL starting at a very reasonable price. Continue to give us models for the Ford Maverick that start at a very reasonable price. I'd even totally accept completely different interiors, sort of like how Ram has the Ram Classic. After all these years, they're still offering the Ram Classic. Instead of just not changing the style and making it so that everyone on the road is like, oh, they went for the Ram that's, dirt cheap because we're all tired of that style. Change up the exterior, keep it modern, keep it recent, but maybe have very different interiors offered. Make a Maverick XL, keep the current interior essentially. But then when you go up to XLT, upgrade that interior. And when you go up to Lariat, upgrade it again. Put the newness on the new models. And Peugeot. Yeah, every media seems to have their angle, and this is why I much prefer independent media. I like to follow different sources on X, different sources. I do appreciate the work that Tucker Carlson is doing. It's very brave of him to go. And I wanted to cover this on the show, but then I said, "Ugh, I better not. I've already been slapped on the wrist." But I think it's incredibly courageous that he interviewed the president of Russia, that he interviewed Putin, because he knew he was going to essentially, people would imply that he's a traitor for doing it. Hearing other parties' opinions and having their version of the facts get presented isn't treasonous or treacherous. It's what journalists are supposed to do. They're supposed to give us both sides of the story so as adults we can decide for ourselves. Instead, mainstream media being owned by the big three corporations that are running the planet and pushing their agenda, instead we get fed information, and essentially they're not telling us what we have to think, but by excluding all the other narratives and only giving you this and information, well, your opinion can only be found between here and here if you don't have any of the extra information. And that's what's disgusting. That's what I have a major problem with. And Peugeot, yes, it was an absolutely great interview. He is doing some very, very important work. Now, the interior of this this MS model, MSRS, look at that. Or was it MSMT? Sorry about that, folks. The MSRT, that makes me think a little too Dodge. Maybe for our market, they could not go with RT. I'm thinking, Challengers and whatnot. But no matter what, I'm thinking that is a unique interior, and that looks incredible. I'd pay decent money. Hopefully a little bit less money than a Ranger Raptor, and hopefully actually available, because right now this was a European debut. Let's hope we get it for our market. Now, Randy Schenk is offering, I like that family name. Good strong family name, Randy. Any Canadian dealer get Ranger Raptor allocation? Yes, many dealers. Most dealers will get 1 to 4, because our Canadian dealers are a lot smaller than the huge dealers, let's say down in Florida or Texas, where they might get 10 to 20 even Ranger Raptors. A lot of dealers here in Canada, if it looks like a small dealer, very good chances they're getting 0 Ranger Raptor allocations. I'm at a pretty big dealer. We're getting 1. The biggest Canadian dealers could get maybe 3 or 4. So that's the question you need to ask the dealer. If you want a Ranger Raptor, how many do you have on order already? How many allocations are you getting for the year? Or just ask them, do you have a free allocation available? And if they say yes, you can ask them. So you're telling me if I'm the only order, or if you have one available, when is it going to be? When's the next time that it's getting produced? Because you should get your order picked up. For example, right now, for almost all the models, Ford is picking up orders for the month of April. So if you put in an order now for almost any Ford model, it should get built in April, unless the dealer has no allocations for that model, or they're already all used up by the orders that are already in the system. And a smart dealer, and do business with smart dealers, but a smart dealer will be able to say, yes, I still have allocations for April available. You will get built unless we get hit with some bad luck. You almost certainly will get built in April. And if it's not in April, well, then it should be in May. If they can't tell you that, I'd be weary and I'd order my Ranger Raptor elsewhere, because some dealers, they're just not going to get a whole lot of these Ranger Raptors. All right, so that's what's going down. We've also got some interesting, far more interesting coverage here to talk about. And that's in regards to Gen 2 EV production. So Ford is promising that Gen 2 EV production is going to be on its own platforms. They are going to be very, very different than the current models. So you know how the Ford F-150 Lightning looks a whole lot like an F-150 petrol-powered vehicle? That's because it's the same platform. The new EVs are going to run on their own platform. We might very well get a Ranger EV, but if it comes more towards Gen 2, they'll likely also carry their own names. And Ford is promising that after 12 months, these Gen 2 EV vehicles are going to be profitable. So guess what, folks? EVs aren't going anywhere. So the fact that Ford has been, and here's some more interesting news. You've got the Puma, and let's go cover that right now. The Ford Puma is probably very good chances it's going EV. Lots of rumors, lots of speculation. So let's check this out right now. Ford Puma Gen E officially announced, as an all-electric variant. So this was previously a rumor that I was covering, saying that it would be very likely, and here it is. We will be getting an electric Puma model. I bet this is Brett Foote again. Brett Foote's doing great jobs. Let's just look at that. This is a great seller over in Europe. So having it as an EV is going to be great because it won't be extremely expensive, because Ford, Jim Farley has been talking that the plan is not to have more models like the F-150 Lightning. High, very expensive, big, expensive electric models. The goal is to have a lot of inexpensive electric models. Why? This makes total sense, folks. This is to avoid bankruptcy caused by the government. Governments will fine automakers billions of dollars if they're producing essentially too much CO2, if they're using too much fuel. They need to get, as time goes on, closer and closer to the 50 mile per gallon fleet average, because apparently carbon's going to destroy the planet. Either way, these are the facts. Manufacturers have to deal with it or pay billions of dollars in fines or send billions of dollars to buy tax credits from Tesla. That means helping your competitor out dramatically. So Ford's going to be smart. They're going to make electric vehicles that can sell in very high volumes. They're seeing that the Lightning, with its higher cost, isn't selling in very high volumes. So they're going to make a lot of inexpensive electric vehicles. We're talking, high 20s throughout the $30,000 range. So probably roughly from about 29,000 US dollars to about 45,000 US dollars. They want to have a lot of those models. And this ties in with Ford's plan from the last decade. As an insider, reading insider information from the last decade, I can tell you this does fit in with Ford's plan. They put it on pause when battery prices tripled or quadrupled during the whole, the last 3 years. But now that Ford has lithium iron phosphate batteries that cost roughly about a fourth of the price as regular lithium ion batteries, because they're not using rare earth minerals, or not as many rare earth minerals. They're costing less to produce, roughly 4 times less. They're going to be able to actually provide these low cost electric vehicles that will get high volume sales. That'll help bring down that mile per gallon fleet average, help avoid those billions of dollars either sent to Tesla as carbon credits that they buy, or to the government as fines every year. Ford, folks, is going to survive. This answers the question, what's going to happen to prices? Well, at Ford, they're going to go down because they're going to offer you relatively inexpensive electric vehicles. What's going to happen to EVs at Ford? Are they going to bust Ford, bankrupt Ford? No, they're not going to bankrupt Ford. What they're going to do is they're going to actually save Ford from spending billions of dollars in fines. And on that, we've got this Puma Electric. It's a bestseller in Australia, but we also have some cool news. More chances, more and more. From day one, there is insider talk about a plug-in Bronco, and that it would come in later, and then even further down the road, quite possibly, nothing guaranteed, but an all-electric Bronco. But right now, what's much more likely is a plug-in Bronco. Why is that much more likely? Well, Ford is benchmarking the Jeep Wrangler 4xe as a possible Bronco competitor. And I think this is going to happen. I've been hearing this for far too long, from almost day one, and I've been hearing so much about this. And now that they're benchmarking Jeep Wrangler 4xe, I'd say this is going to be attached to the 2.3 liter engine. I covered this 2 years ago when Volkswagen, a high up at Volkswagen, let a little slip out about the 2.3 liter plug-in. In Europe, the Ford Ranger 2.3 liter plug-in is a thing. It's announced as an actual thing. Based on the insider talk and how the Ranger and Bronco would have similarities, I'd say it's almost guaranteed. It's just a question of when that we get a plug-in Bronco. And that's, I think, pretty exciting. Now, the Wrangler is pretty interesting. And now, let's not poo-poo on this. That 2-liter 4-cylinder on its own, meh, as a plug-in becomes very interesting. More expensive, yes, but also very interesting because with it, a 17 kilowatt battery, it ends up bringing that 4-cylinder 2-liter turbo up to 375 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque, providing owners also with a short electric driving range. At Ford, I'm thinking this will probably end up being the engine with the most amount of torque in the Bronco. It'll probably have more torque than the Ford Bronco Raptor. And I love torque. Torque equals a fun driving experience. So we can definitely look forward to that, folks. Now, what else can we look forward to? Let's check it out. Let's talk about 1,000 horsepower over at Ford. This is a real thing. So 1,000 horsepower, potentially quite possibly coming to Ford, because Magna did say that they're going to be selling a near 1,000 horsepower engine to one of the American companies. And guess what? Ford has had a very interesting and historied relationship with Magna. So we could see a high-end EV motor coming to Ford. No idea what